So now we're going to continue to our piping and ducting. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to show you for this part is that how to create a system type. So first, let's see our AutoCAD drawing first. As you can see right here, we have two part of it. We have our ducting, and then we have our piping and some of the mechanical equipment here, which is chiller. Okay, so the duct here is actually it is with the air terminal. Okay, it is connected to the air terminal. So we're going to look into this later. Okay, so first thing first, as I promised to you, I'm going to show you how we can create the system type. So what I want you to understand is that for pipe and duct, it is very similar. So whatever that I show you on the piping pipe will actually be the same in the ducting side unless I mention something else. Okay, so let's start with creating a new system type. I'm just going to continue to use the file that we previously done. So for you to actually be able to create a new system type, what you're going to do is that you're going to go into your project browser. Okay, so if you scroll down your project browser, just under here we have family. So you can click on this plus button here for you to actually expand everything. Okay, so here, what I want you to do is, for example, here, I want to create a new piping system. So in my family here, I can actually find a piping system. Okay, if I expand, I will see every piping system that has been created by default of by Revit. Okay, so we have all this domestic water up until vent. Okay, so there's quite a number of piping system that we have. So for example, in your project, you wanted to have a new piping system that you're going to use in your model later. So what you can do is that you can always duplicate the new system type from the existing one. But the only issue is that from which system type that you're going to duplicate. Okay, so that is actually related back to the equipment that you're going to connect the piping system later. So in my case here, the piping will all be connected to my chiller. So first of all, you need to understand the chiller first. So because I have done this numerous times, so what I can tell you is that in my mechanical equipment here, which is my chiller, it's going to have a connector. So about connector, you will understand more as we go along to our family creation of lighting fixture. I'm going to explain it further there. But initially, what you need to understand is that for any pipe or duct to be able to actually be connected to the equipment, what it has ialah your connector. So for this chiller here, the connector is on hydronic supply and hydronic return. So if I wanted to have a new piping system that are going to be connected to the chiller, I'm going to have to duplicate the system type from either hydronic return or hydronic supply. If I create the piping system using duplicating from domestic cold water, what happens is that when I want to connect the pipe later to the chiller, it will say that the system is not compatible. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to duplicate the hydronic return and hydronic supply. So first, we concentrate on hydronic return first. What you can do is that you can just right click and then there is duplicate. So I'm going to duplicate this one more because we're going to create two new piping system. And then on hydronic return 2, you can simply right click and click on rename. So for hydronic return, I'm going to put in CHWR, okay, which is chill water return. And then for hydronic return 3, I'm going to rename it as CWR, which is condenser water return. Okay, and then for hydronic supply, I'm going to repeat the same step, right click, duplicate, and duplicate one more. Okay, for supply, you can always rename it to be CHWS for chill water supply, and then for hydronic supply 3, you can always rename to CWS, which is condenser water supply. So here we go. Without wasting any time, now we have 4 new piping system that we have. So that is the same thing that going to go with your duct system here. So if you have any new duct system, you can actually just duplicate it from the existing duct system that we have here. Okay, so go back to this piping system. What I wanted to show you guys is that now we already have our new piping system. Okay, so I'm just going to show you one thing first. Okay, so if you create a pipe, okay, so you can always change your system type here in your properties panel. So for example, if I take on hydraulic supply and I just try to create it here, so what will happen is that I can do one more. Okay, so what will happen is that you see that the pipe is very similar to each other. So for example, here in my AutoCAD drawing, because I have 4 different piping system, I would like to actually differentiate them from each other. So if you see from my AutoCAD drawing here, it has different outline color for each pipe, which indicate different piping system. You can always do that in Revit as well. So for example, if for CHWR, I wanted to assign some color. For example, I want to assign red color for my CHWR. So what I can do is that I can just simply go to CHWR and then double click. Okay, so it will pop up my type properties window here. So what you can do is that you have your graphic override here. So you can click on your graphic override and click on edit. Now what you have is that you have the line graphic. So you can actually change the color for your line graphic. So what happened is that I'm going to go ahead, CHWR, I'm going to give it a red color. Okay. Okay. So what happened is that if for this pipe, I change it to be a CHWR pipe, what you will see is that the outline of the pipe will be in red in color. So it may not be as significant or anything, but you actually can see the outline of the pipe is now in red color. So I'm going to repeat the same step for the 3 remaining piping system that I've done. So again, I'm going to go to CHWS and then double click. And then for the graphic override for CHWS, I'm going to put it as blue. Then click on OK, click on OK again, and then there you have it. That is how you're going to give it a color for the graphic override. And then we repeat for CWR. So here for CWR, I'm going to give it a color magenta. Okay, and then for CWS, instead of clicking on OK. If you wanted to work a little bit faster, you can actually just change it here. For CWS, go ahead to edit. Now I'm going to give it a green color. Okay, so if I click on OK, so what happens is that if I create a new pipe, so I will be creating 4 pipe here. Okay, so this one is CHWR and then this one is CHWS. So just change it here in your properties panel. And then this is CWR. And then the last one we have CWS. So you can see just from seeing it from your floor plan without having to click on anything, you can see that they have different outline color, which if you guys really understand the AutoCAD drawing, you can actually just match it together. So the color from AutoCAD and the color that you use in your Revit will be uniform. So that is on creating your new piping system. Okay, so that is the first point that I wanted to you guys to understand on how you can create a new piping system. Okay, so the next part is that I'm going to go ahead and show you guys on how we can create a new type of pipe. Do not be confused. The previous thing that we do is that we create a new type of piping system. Okay, that is on our system. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to create a new pipe type. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, for MEP component, okay, for us, we're going to go ahead and play around the system tab. So system type, we have our HVAC panel for ducting, our mechanical, for for all the mechanical equipment that going to be placed later. And then for plumbing and piping, we have all this pipe, and then we have electrical, and we have our model and work plane here. So if you click on pipe here, okay, this is our type selector. If you click on your type selector, you will see that Revit has these two default, which is chill water and then the standard pipe. Okay, so in my AutoCAD drawing here, what I have is that I have two different type of pipe. First, here you can see this is a welded pipe. Okay, so welded pipe, this is actually the same thing that we have here, a chill water welded pipe. Okay, but we have this flange pipe here. So I'm going to create a new pipe type, going to be named as chill water flange. So the step is that first you go to pipe, and then just make sure here is pipe type standard. So when you want to create a new pipe type or duct type, so what you can do is that you can click on the edit type. Okay, here you can click on duplicate. So in duplicate, you're going to give it a proper name. So for me, I'm going to put it as chill water flange. Okay, so what will happen is that you only have yet to duplicate the pipe type. Okay, what you need to adjust more is your routing preference. So what is routing preference? Basically, routing preference is something that looks like this. So in here, what you can do is that you can actually specify every little detail that you wanted to have in your pipe type. For example, if when you create your pipe and then you make some turn or you make some adjustment or anything, so when you make a turn, for example, so what type of elbow that Revit is going to be using? So elbow, so if from the elbow you have a junction, so what type of junction that going to be used? So it is all listed in your routing preference. And also for your pipe, you have this additional of pipe segment. So for example, if your pipe segment is different, so you can actually just um, pick it from here. Okay, so for now, as per what we have do earlier, we have duplicated the chill water flange, and now we want to actually specify the routing preference. So for that, you can actually check first. So for elbow, is there any elbow loaded that are suitable for you to use for your flange pipe? So there is no flange elbow here. So what you can do is that you can click on load family. Okay, so for those of you who are very new to Revit, I wanted to tell you that if you first install your Revit in your computer or your laptop, what it will install is that not just the software, but it will actually install together a a library for you. Okay, so the default installation part is that you go to your my computer to your C drive, and then you should have your program data here. And then in the program data, you can actually find your Autodesk. And then in Autodesk, you can actually find your Revit version. So RVT 2020. So if you have another version in your computer, it will all listed here. Okay, so for me now, as I'm using Revit 2020, I'm going to go ahead to RVT 2020. And then in here, I will go into my library. Okay, in this library, I'm going to go to Malaysia. And then as I wanted to load the pipe fitting. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to pipe and then fitting. Okay, so this is a flange pipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into carbon steel, class 150, flange. So here I can load every single thing. So here I'm going to go ahead and load the cross, elbow. So you can actually load multiple fitting at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and go click on cross, elbow, and then the T flange here. And then I'm going to bring in my reducer as well. So this is the 4 things that I'm going to load into my project. And then I will click on open. Okay, so give it some time for it to actually be loaded into your computer. So the more file that you choose to be loaded, the longer time it will take basically. So here, what you can do is that you can always change it here. So elbow, so if you guys remember, before we load, we only have two options. So now we already have the flange elbow. Okay, so I'm going to put it here, and then the T as well, flange, and then the cross, flange, transition, a reducer, and then for union and cap, I'm just going to go ahead and use whatever that I have here. And then for flange here, because this is a flange pipe, of course, I'm going to go ahead and load another family. So I go back, and then here I go into steel flanges, and then I take class 150, and then M flange walnut steel. And then you can click on open. Okay, so here you can see in this routing preference window, you already have the minimum size and maximum size. So basically what you can do is that you can always adjust the size that you wanted. So for example, if for copper A, you can only up until 200 millimeter. Okay, so for example, if I change this into steel carbon schedule 40, what you will do is you can see that it has a different maximum size. So for example, I put in a 600. So in flange here, we already have loaded the family. So you can change the M flange walnut here. And then the minimum size, you can all just put in as all. So basically, if all, it will goes back into the minimum size and maximum size that we have here. Okay. If you are satisfied with the routing preference that you have done, what you can do is that you can click on OK. Okay, so now you click on OK. So what you can do is that now you already have your chill water flange. Okay, so if I try to do it here, you will see now you have your flange pipe here. Okay, so now without further ado, I'm going to actually go into the next step, which is placing your mechanical equipment. So for this, we have two mechanical equipment that I wanted to bring in, which is my air terminal and my chiller here. So for my air terminal, in the system tab, we have a designated tool for air terminal. So if you guys go to system, you will see air terminal. And then you will choose the air terminal that you want. So I'm going to use the M supply diffuser 600 times 600 ni here. And then what you're going to do is that before you go actually to bring it into your project, what you have to look first is in your properties panel. So first, elevation from. So this is actually very important for you to key in. So elevation from level. So I'm just going to put it as 3000. Okay, so when I put it as 3000, what you will do is that when I put it here, okay, and then I just put it here first. So if I look into my 3D view, if you want to go to your 3D view, you can just simply in your quick access toolbar, you can click on this house symbol. Okay, so you can see that it is located as 3000 from the level 0 that we have here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and create similar. So I can click on this air terminal. I click on CS in my keyboard, so it will create the similar air terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. Okay, so now I have placed all my air terminal. And now I'm going to place my chiller first. So for chiller, it is located in your mechanical equipment. So if you click on your mechanical equipment, you will see there is a lot of mechanical equipment that have been preloaded for you. Okay, so I cannot find any chiller in my tab properties. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and load family. Sorry. Okay, so in this one, so I'm going to go back until I find this Malaysia, okay, and then I'm going to look for mechanical, okay, double click on mechanical, go to MEP, okay, so here, in this chiller, so I'm going to go into my, okay, in my water side component, so you're going to find chiller here. So what I'm going to use is that I'm going to bring in my M centrifugal liquid chiller single compressor, yang this one. So I'm going to click on open. Okay, so for chiller, of course, it will be located on the ground. So we just leave it as elevation from level 0 and level 1. Okay, so you can see that I have my chiller with me on my pointer. So if I click on spacebar, okay, it will be rotated. So if you guys feel that, okay, this is quite difficult to put in, the tricks that you can do is that you can just put it at the outside first. So what you can do is that you can click on it later and then you can copy it back. So because we have 3 chiller to put, so I'm going to click on multiple, and then what you can do is that you can click on one point here. So for example, I take this point as a reference point. So what you can do is that you can just simply put it back here. So it is much more simpler to do it this way, I think. Okay, so that is our chiller. So if you look into your 3D view, you will see that you have something like this. So the chiller that you have on the outside, you can just actually select and delete it back. Okay, so here I can use my fine, my shaded, so you can see that the chiller and my air terminal to be viewing a little bit better graphically. Okay, so I go back to my floor plan. So now we're going to go into the modeling part. Okay, so as I previously mentioned in my slide, I have prepared for you 7 essential tips for you to understand in order for you to create your pipe and duct. So we're going to look into one by one. So we're going to start into our duct. So before I move into duct, I'm just going to show you one thing. So for duct, very similar to what we have in pipe, what you actually have is if you go to edit type, you also have your routing preference here. So you can actually click on edit, and then here you can see the routing preference is similar except that you do not have the pipe segment that we have. So we do not have the option to choose our segment. But basically we have all our elbow, our junction here. So if you guys have any changes that you wanted to put in your duct, so it is very important for you to understand the routing preference. Sometimes what we do is that we do the model and then sometimes it is not connected and everything. So the first thing that I would like for you to check is your routing preference, because sometimes the routing that you have done may not be able to be done in your project because of certain forces. Okay, so what you can do is that you can always check your routing preference. Okay, so for that, we're going to go to system, duct. Okay, so first thing first, in my slide earlier, I said that first you need to pay attention to your option bar. So where is your option bar? So this is your option bar, the one that we have here. So you have your width, your height, your middle elevation, and this log symbol here. So before we go into this project, I'm just going to show you outside here. Okay, first I said that we have to pay attention to the option bar. So this is your option bar. So you have to remember, first you need to specify the size that you want. What is the width, what is the height, and then what is the middle elevation. Okay, and then the second point that I said in my slide is that we need to understand the constraint parameter. Okay, so where is your constraint parameter? This is your constraint parameter. So in your option bar, you only have middle elevation. But in your constraint parameter, you can actually have your top elevation, middle elevation, and bottom elevation. So for example, if you're modeling, for example, for duct, right? So for example, if you have the requirement for bottom of duct and everything, you can actually just put it here. So instead of putting your middle elevation here, you can actually just put it in your bottom elevation. So for example, I put it here as 3000. So what you will see is that it will be updated here in the middle elevation. Revit is smart enough to know if you put in your bottom elevation here, what will happen to your middle elevation based on the height of duct that you have specified earlier. So that is on your constraint parameter. For horizontal justification and vertical justification, I'm going to show you later. Okay, and then the next tip is that you need to ensure that you are using the correct system type. So where is your system type? System type is located in your properties panel. A little bit go down, so you can see in the mechanical part here. This is your system type. So make sure that you use the correct system type. If you are creating a supply air duct, so make sure you pakai supply air, vice versa. Okay, so that is my third point. Okay, and then the fourth point ialah we always need to understand our routing preference. Just like what I mentioned earlier, you need to understand your routing preference. Sometimes the model that we have done, you say that you have some error, you cannot connect and everything. So it is all based on your routing preference. Okay, and then the next thing ialah you need to use your 3D view, elevation view and section view whenever necessary. So other than using your floor plan, you can always opt for using your 3D view, your elevation view and your section view just for you to understand further about the model that you are creating. Okay, so that is something that we're going to look into when we do our modeling for pipe. Okay, and then the next, this is a very important thing that I want to highlight is you need to use the correct justification. And for this, I'm going to show you some example. The justification is located in your constraint parameter. Here we have our horizontal justification and vertical justification. So basically here we have center, left and right. Vertical justification, we have top, middle and bottom. So what you have here, so for example, for width, I start with 300 times 300 here. So I use horizontal justification center, vertical justification middle. So what happened is when you create a duct, you can see that, okay, when you click on the duct, you have this, you have your point here. This is your control point for your duct. Okay, so if you right click on this control point, you have all these options to actually draw duct, hide in view and everything. Okay, so if you look into the 3D view, okay, so this is the duct. So you will see that the duct have the control point at the center and at the middle. Okay, so this is what it means by center middle. Okay, so when we have this duct and then we wanted to create a new duct that are connected to it. So for example, I put in the size and width and height as 500 times 500. What will happen is that when you put it here, it will be actually expanded from the center. If you look into the 3D view, you will see that, okay, it is expanded right from the center. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the second case. So for example, if I create a new pipe, but this one, I use a right and then I use bottom. So what will happen is that first I have my 300 times 300. So you see that this one, the center point is located at the right side. Okay, so if you go into your 3D view, okay, you will see that the control point have changed. Okay, so what will happen is that if from here I create a new draw duct here and then I put it as 500 times 500. So what you can see is that from the floor plan, you can see that it is expanded from the right side here. So if you look into 3D view, so what will happen is that you will see that it actually, so I'm going to hide this first for you to actually see it better. So if you look into your 3D view, you will see that it has a flat bottom. Okay, so wait, I just going to isolate this first. So if you look into the left side, you will see that it has a flat bottom just for what you see here. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the last one. So if you guys have a new duct and then you just make it, for example, I put it into the middle as well. So if you just create it here and then you change the, okay, you will see first this one in the 3D view. So you will see that here we have our control point to be at the center, but vertically it is in the center, horizontally you see it is on the right side. So what can happen is that if you draw that from here and then you wanted to create a different size, okay, so 500. So what you can do is that Okay, if I go into my 3D view, you will see that if I look into it from the right side, you will see that because now our vertical justification is in the middle, it will not have a flat bottom. So that is how you can actually play around with your ducting. So this goes the same for your pipe. Okay, in pipe pun kita ada all those justification that you can play around with. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how we can create the duct here. So I'm going to go ahead to duct, and then what I want to do is that first, as I mentioned earlier, you have to pay attention to the option bar. So here is my option bar. So I know the size is 500 times 300. So I'm just going to change it here. Okay, and then the elevation is going to be 3,500. So I'm just going to give it here. Okay, and then for horizontal justification, I'm going to put it as center and middle. And then I'm going to go ahead and check on my system type whether or not I use the right system type. I wanted to have a supply air, so this is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and create the duct here. So up until here, what you can do is that you can straight away change the width. So I'm going to go ahead, click on 700 up until here. And then from here, I can create similar, and then just simply model it first without having to care about whether or not it is the same as my AutoCAD drawing. So after that, I can go to modify, select on align. You can actually just align your ducting. So as you can probably see here, when we create our model, it is actually putting our AutoCAD drawing at the bottom. So what you can do is that you can click on your AutoCAD drawing. Okay, and then here we have the function to actually put it as a foreground. So when you use it as a foreground, you can see now the drawing stays on top rather than being at the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to connect the air terminal. So basically what I would like to do is that from the air terminal, you can click on the create duct and then just change the elevation to 3,500, and then you can just simply connect. So you can see that I have my error here. So no auto rotate solution was found. So why does this happen is because I do not have the sufficient space to do so. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have that kind of error, so what you need to check first is your routing preference. So here in my routing preference, I'm going to change my elbow to be 1W. So if I change it, so what can happen is that if I click on this draw duct, and then I change the elevation to 3,500, what you can see is that now it can be properly connected. You see, I do not make any other changes other than actually adjusting my routing preference. And then here in the center, you can actually see Revit has provided you with a T. So what you can do is that if you zoom in, you can see this plus sign. So if you click on the plus sign, what will happen is that the fitting will be expanded. So what you can do further is that from here you can right click draw duct, and then you can see that you have the round symbol, and then you can just simply click on the air terminal. So if I look into it in the 3D view, so what will happen is that, wait, okay. So what will happen in my 3D view is that I'm going to show you, so this is the outcome of our modeling just now. Okay, so I'm just going to show you one more. So for air terminals, for some of the mechanical equipment that we have, not everything, but some of the element that we have for mechanical equipment, it has the function to actually connect into. So how can you use this connect into is that you just click on your air terminal, and then you click on connect into, and then you can simply click on your duct. So you can see that it automatically create your routing. But for this one, you cannot simply do so because this is now a fitting. So you need to expand the fitting first, and then from here you can just right click, draw duct, and actually just connect it as usual. Okay, so I'm going to stop on my ducting modeling right here. So I'm going to go ahead to my piping. So the same thing goes for your piping. So I'm just going to show you on whatever that we have up here. Okay, so what can you do is that you can go ahead to system, you go to pipe, and then the same thing happen. You need to make sure that you have the correct pipe type, the correct elevation, the correct system type, and so on. So I'm just going to show you one thing. So for here, I'm going to draw this first. So this red pipe here. So first, I'm going to make sure I use that the correct diameter for my pipe. So I'm going to use 300 here. Okay, and then make sure I have the correct elevation. So I'm going to use 3000. Okay, and then this is supposed to be, so for red, we have CHWR. So I'm going to use it here. So just simply lay the pipe here. So I'm just going to create up until here. Okay, so the same thing goes for the next pipe. The only difference that you have is the system type. So rather than actually creating the pipe, you can always go for copy. Okay, so after you have copied, what you need to do is that you need to change the system type. So for here, I have the blue outline, which is for CHWX. Okay, and then for the pipe here, this is going to be the flange pipe. So I go ahead to pipe and make sure, oh sorry, this is actually supposed to be my chill water pipe. Sorry. So for here, I'm going to go to pipe and then make sure I use the correct type, which is chill water flange, and then make sure the diameter. So this one is going to be 350. The middle elevation is 3000, and just make sure that you use the correct system type. So for green, this is actually a CWS pipe, just like this one. So I'm going to put it here, okay, up until here. And then lastly, I have this magenta pipe. So this is the similar pipe as this one. The only difference that you have is actually the system type. So what you can do is you can create similar, just change it to be CWR, and then you can actually just lay the pipe here. Okay, so I'm just going to show you this. So after that, I'm going to show you how you can actually connect to the mechanical equipment, which is chiller in this case. So remember when I said that you need to use 3D view, elevation view, and section view. So for example, for this case, I want to connect the pipe that we have up here with the chiller that we have down here. So this is the best scenario when you can create a section view. To create a section view, you just go ahead to this one, section, and then just create the section view here, and then just adjust it a bit, and then you can actually just go ahead and connect. So I'm going to go to fine, shaded, and then I'm going to adjust a bit the crop view. So for example, for this one, I'm just going to show you this one. So here, you can see the connector. So you can click on here. You can actually change the diameter. So if you want to change the diameter, you can do so. So if you see here, you cannot change the system type. So what can you do is that you just going to create it first. So sorry, I used the wrong system pipe. So here, make sure you use the correct diameter, and then here just use chill water. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to just go ahead and create it first, and then just select on it again to change the system type. So for this one, it is CHWR. So what you can do is that you can just simply draw pipe up until here. So you can see that in 3D view, it is actually connected. So this is the situation where you actually need to work from your section view. So same goes for this one. So I use the chill water pipe, put it here, and then change the system type first. So this is my blue pipe is actually my CHWS, so it is listed here. Okay, and then I'm just going to draw pipe up until this one. Okay, so the same goes for the two remaining pipe. So that is what I wanted to show you guys for the modeling pipe. So I hope this is okay. So if you guys wanted to do it later, you can actually just wait for 3D Tech to actually upload this video in the Facebook page, and you guys can refer to it later whenever you want to actually complete the model. So for that, I will wrap on our second part, which is for our piping and ducting.